Alright guys, welcome back to Keeping Up with the X-Men, and yes, I would like to start this out by apologizing and saying that sometimes this show will take a back seat to my other show. I have no choice, that's the way it is. I know I said I was going to do a video every single day and get us all caught up, but honestly, every now and then I am going to fall a little bit behind. I will catch myself up, but every now and then I will have to fall a little bit behind. And the reason that this is happening is because I'm on another network, for those that don't know, and that network takes priority. It's so far a nearly 9-year project. It's like an 8-year project. There's a lot of work put into it, and I can't just simply drop what I'm doing there. It's a gigantic podcast thing. Everything from Reploid Productions with the 4 chairs is where that all started, and I'm on a network called fandomnight.com, and that does Controller Pile-Up, Legacy of Gaming, Pages of Fandom, Comics TAS, the Sentai Review, What's Up Fandom Night. About the only thing I'm not in is this thing called the Jobber Wrestling Corner. Now, I will say this, however. This will not affect the fact that I do cover everything. I will still be doing that, and I will catch us back up. I'll do 2 videos or whatever I have to do to get us back there. But for right now, that is what's going on. Is something came up with that, and I had to go handle that, and now I'm back here. Oh, aside from the fact that also I was still recovering from that sinus sickness a little more than I realized, and shortly after I did that video, I had like a knockout day where literally I slept for the entire day and I kind of went back into a slump. But that's all personal stuff, and that's not what we're here to do. So here we are. This is Jean Grey issue 9. And once again, man, I love these Jean Grey books. They are so good. It blows my mind how good these books have been. Now, if you remember right, in the last book, she had entered the mind of Emma Frost because adult Jean Grey, who's now dead, who's a ghost, came back and possessed young Jean Grey and then did kind of like a mind trick to Emma Frost where she knocked Emma Frost out basically and then implanted young Jean Grey into Emma's mind so she could run through and look for something. And specifically what they ended up looking for was a small piece of the Phoenix Force, which was still inside of Emma Frost. Now, this deals with a lot of that, and this book was fantastic. This book is great. One, because I always like to see how do I put this? I like to see, it's not necessarily that I like to see the rivalry, but the relationship of Emma Frost and Jean Grey is always very interesting because these are 2 people that are primarily the same person that grew up in different lives. They share a lot of the same powers. They have a lot of the same, they even have a lot of the same personality tropes, even when you get right down to it, when you really dig down. These women are very similar in many different ways, and it is those similarities that clash them in a way. Because Emma kind of sees the high and mighty Jean Grey, where Jean Grey sees the morally corrupt Emma Frost, and so on and so forth. And of course, they fought over Scott, and there was a lot of things like that, which this book goes into a little bit of detail as to what was going on there. Now, anyways, when we start this, the 2 girls are arguing while we transport young Jean Grey to the hospital, is what's going on. And they can't figure out what's going on with this young girl. They're trying to help her as they transport her, but she keeps catching their equipment on fire, and she's obviously dying, but they can't really help the girl because it's almost like she's on fire. And sure enough, when they get her into the hospital room, she actually does catch on fire. And she's a burning something severe. And the whole time, we have Emma and we have Jean Grey, and they're arguing. And what's interesting here is that part of this argument actually comes down to basically say, you did this to her, Jean. For once, I am sitting here on the moral high ground, and you are the one that is questionable. And she's like, I was trying to help. You don't understand. She's like, when it comes for her, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be disastrous. And I was trying to inoculate her the littlest bit to show her what this was. And maybe the smallest spark could have helped her. Now, she does admit, and there's this really, really good panel, which makes me want an Emma Frost book. I'm telling you, this was great. It sums it all up and tells me what an Emma Frost book could be immediately when Emma, in a single panel, says, imagine that. All it took was death and desperation to turn you into me. And something about, and that's what I mean, is that these women are very close to being the same woman already. And that's something that Scott's seen amongst the two of them, made it very difficult for him to choose where he wanted to be and so on and so forth. Well, one of the things that's going on here is that Jean catches on fire on the hospital bed, and Emma goes and turns on the fire suppression systems. Then Emma takes Jean Grey from the hospital and says, look, doctors can't help her. What you did is a little beyond that. And she takes a helicopter and decides that she's going to go help her herself. So now they're on the helicopter, and it flashes us to a quick scene where it shows that Hope has been tracking I'm not sure if it's psychic turbulent events or whatever it is, but regardless, she's been tracking something. And part of what she's tracking, actually, right here, she gets something big. This is not a small thing that appears on her radar, quote, it's an Omega-level terrestrial warning. And she's been kind of tracking these different events that have been happening around the world and whatnot. So now we have Hope, who's also on the way to join whatever is happening right here. Jean Grey and Emma continue this magnificent conversation, and that's a big part of what this book was. The whole book was a giant discussion between these two women pertaining to the Phoenix Force and pertaining to Scott and a whole bunch of other things in general. And one of the things that ends up happening here is Jean asks her flat out, adult Jean says, first off, Emma says, how did you know? How did you know that I had a part of the Phoenix in there? And she says, well, young Jean Grey knew, because young Jean Grey felt it as far back as All New X-Men number 30. And that's actually crazy. That I like it when they can dig back into continuity and play the long game. That a little bitty thing was shown here, that there's something still in her. And sure enough, what she had done was she had hidden a fraction, a spark of the Phoenix Force, the littlest, ittiest, bittiest part that she was able to hang on to inside of herself. And she locked it in her most powerful memory. And that was the day that she was able to turn Scott Summers to her attention. And Jean assumes that, oh, you kept it in that nightmare of a memory just in case I came along. And she tells her, no, not everything is about you. I didn't keep that there. I didn't keep the spark there because of you, so you wouldn't find it or something of that nature. No, that's not what that was. Believe it or not, Jean, while this might have been a tragic story for you, this was the very beginning to my love story. I loved Scott. That was something real for me. And though you can never appreciate it, and though the situation might have been crappy that put us where we were, I treasured my time with Scott Summers. And you have no right to question that. And that's very interesting. That's what I mean about these two women. I love the way that their dynamic works against each other. They both dated Scott. They both were very intimate with Scott. They both share a power set that's very similar. They're both, and I don't really think this plays in too much, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring it out. They're both knockouts, okay? They're both very attractive, very powerful, very self-independent women who chose different paths. They're almost the same character living different lives. And I've always liked when their dynamic comes into touch and when they clash, because I think that's something that, I'm telling you, I would have loved for this upcoming X-Men Red to have both Jean Grey and Emma Frost on the same team. I would have loved that concept, to see these two women. They're never going to be friends, but it's just, I love when these two interact. I can never get enough of it. And it's not just the idea of the hate, but it's the underlined understanding that both of them kind of see each other in one another. And for both of them, that is disgusting, because Jean does not want to be Emma, and Emma does not want to be Jean. And they both detest each other for different reasons, while at the same time harboring this underlined respect and understanding that could have been me. And I really do. I see that every time these women meet up, and that interests me. Now, they stop off here in the middle of the woods, and they meet up with the triplet girls. And the idea here is to kind of enter Jean and calm her down, to kind of quell this power. And they cannot do it. When they enter, it's almost as if Jean's soul is screaming. She catches on fire. It shoots into the sky. There's immense power here. We're talking immense, unbelievable power that is taking place here, and they cannot relax it, no matter what they do. Now, at this exact moment, Quentin walks over. Why he's here, I honestly don't know. He lets them know. He's like, you guys know that, he's like, almost every psychic on the planet can feel what's taking place here, right? You guys are basically causing a calamity on the planet. And he comes over, and he shoots Jean Grey in the head with a psychic bullet to shut her mind down, basically. She collapses on the ground. The Phoenix Flame goes out. Emma gets pretty mad for a while, but then also at the same time realizes that, yes, this was something that kind of needed to happen. They needed to stop what was taking place here. And before they can really get too much into what is going on 100%, we have Hope that shows up. She crashes down, and then she takes out this big computer, and she tells them a bunch of blah, blah. I've been tracking this, and I've been doing that. And she says, look, you guys, the Phoenix Force is not on the way. It's here. And when this happens, because Jean Grey wakes up here, and Jean Grey just keeps saying, it's here, the Phoenix is here, the Phoenix is here, it's here, it's here, and they're all like, yeah, we get it, it's here, and she's like, the Phoenix is coming, we get it, and she's like, I don't think you get that. Hope says, she doesn't say that the Phoenix is coming, it's here, and they look up, and there's this giant firebird, and it's insanity, okay? The biggest key to this book was two major things. One was the relationship between Emma Frost and Jean Grey. Magnificent. Magnificent. It made the whole book for me. But there's one other part, which is very important. So we are going to go back to the splash page, the giant, awesome page where the women are trying to control the blast, the power of the Phoenix. They're trying to kind of relax Jean and adapt her to this energy. Now look, this is important because this is something that, believe it or not, even writers at Marvel get this wrong all the time. Understand something. This is a spark of the Phoenix Force energy. A spark. This is the tiniest fragment. This is the exact same when you put two pieces of flint together and you scrape them and you get that spark that comes off, and maybe if you're lucky you can get your fire going. That is all this is. Emma held on to the tiniest portion of power that she could. They refer to it in this story as a spark of the Phoenix Force. And understand further that when Emma had the Phoenix Force, it was not complete. It had been fractured and broken into 5 parts. Now, there are different ways to obtain the Phoenix Force. It bonds with you, and you then are basically the Phoenix. Or you could obtain Phoenix power. There's a difference, however, in obtaining part of the Phoenix's power and actually bonding with it and being the Phoenix. There's a huge difference. And I'm going to tell you something. I can't believe how many writers misunderstand just how powerful the Phoenix Force is. Because, guys, this thing is not a joke. It is a huge, dramatic, incredible deal that so many people get wrong in comics. And right now, it's even more confusing because so many people have the Phoenix Force in the comics. I don't know, there's 2 or 3 guys right now that actually have it, and that's not true. They don't. They have Phoenix. They have some of the power of the Phoenix. And the Phoenix was fractured into 5 fragments during the Avengers vs. X-Men. What you saw, if that's an event that you guys really like, if that's something you understand, if that's where you're tagging the Phoenix Force back to, that was nothing. That was 5 parts of the Phoenix Force. It was not actually the Phoenix. It was not the actual power load. And this here is a spark. And these are not low-level psychics. Okay? These people are powerful. With Emma and the 3 sisters here, she has the power. I would put her... I would say that Professor Xavier would have a tough time taking them down with all of them attacking at the same time. But they can't do anything for her. And here's the thing. I can't believe how misunderstood the Phoenix Force really is from time to time. And here's what I mean. When they did the Avengers vs. X-Men and Tony described the Phoenix Force, he described it as, for those in the room that are unfamiliar, it is a destructive parasitic force of cosmic proportions that latches onto a biological host and then uses that vessel to lay waste to the environment. No. No, it is not. That is so outrageously basic as to what the Phoenix Force is that it's obvious that you don't understand what it is, Tony. And that was proven even further when you accidentally created some robot to punch the Phoenix Force. First off, moron. Second, you didn't do anything that was helpful because all it did was, whatever it was that you did, fractured the Phoenix Force and is causing us problems even today. But what is on the way is the Phoenix, the actual unbridled power. The Phoenix Force is an immortal manifestation of the prime universal force of life and passion. It was born in the void state before life. During the Big Bang, during that white flash, it was born in between existence and non-existence, or rather between non-existence and existence, and then it was. It is essentially the nexus of all psionic energy that does exist, has existed, and will ever exist in not only this reality, but the multiverse at large. There is only one Phoenix. There is not multiple Phoenixes across the multiverse. There's one, and it is the cosmic level adaptation, the physical manifestation of all psionic energy in all of the multiverses all at once. It is also the guardian of creation, and It has a massively substantial link to the powerful Macron crystal, which also comes into play if you ever read the Dark Phoenix stuff. The Phoenix is amongst the most feared powers in the entire universe. It is amongst the pantheon of gods that exist in the Marvel Universe, and on top of that, it has the power to cut and regrow any part of the universe that it would so choose, at any time that it would so choose, as well as destroy it entirely and bring it back entirely whenever it chooses, however it wishes, whenever it wants. Also, it can burn away nearly, if not all, of the entire universe should it so choose to do so. You don't beat the Phoenix. You simply don't. That's not the way that it works. You can probably beat the Host, and that's it. And then when it's the Phoenix, it doesn't look at life in the same way that we do. Like when the Dark Phoenix was destroyed, back in the Dark Phoenix storyline with Jean Grey, that's because Jean Grey chose to be destroyed. The Host chose to be destroyed. That's the only reason we win. That's it. It's not because we outdid her or beat her or stopped the Phoenix. It doesn't work like that. We are so far beneath the Phoenix that we can't even begin to understand. It's like the Dr. Manhattan thing. He doesn't see us as people anymore. We're just kind of things that are. We're life. But he's so far above that it's hard for him to even look at us as anything other than ants. It is the embodiment, the very passion of all creation. It is life itself. The spark that gave life to the universe is the Phoenix. That means that the only reason that you even exist, Tony, is because it let you exist. If it so chooses, you are dead, without question. It doesn't have to come to Earth. Nobody knows why it's so attracted to mutant kind. Nobody knows why it comes here and bonds with Jean Grey. Nobody knows why it's constantly dealing with the mutant race. Maybe it's as easy as mutants really are the next step in evolution, and it wants to guarantee that. But at the same time, if the Phoenix so chose, it could wipe out Earth and the entire universe at large without question. It could be like that section of the universe simply doesn't work anymore, and it can wipe it away and bring the whole thing back. If you want to reboot the Marvel Universe, you do it through the Phoenix. You really do. You do it through the Phoenix. You give it to somebody, and you let a Infinity Gauntlet level event take place again, where the Phoenix wipes away all of creation and then brings it all back at its starting point and says, try again. I'm going to make a couple modifications, help life along its course. It won't be easy, but this is where we go from here. And then the Marvel Universe is rebooted. Look, guys, this is a long episode. I didn't necessarily mean it to be this long, but I think that it's important for people to really grasp just how important and how dangerous and how powerful the Phoenix Force really is, because there are so many writers in Marvel, and there are so many people that are fans of the material that really don't know just how broken powerful the Phoenix really is. It is unreasonable to assume that we just go in and beat the Phoenix or something like that. It's so, like, watching the Avengers fight the Phoenix. And another thing that really killed me about the Avengers versus X-Men was things like claiming that for some reason the Scarlet Witch, the Phoenix, is afraid of her. The Scarlet Witch only lives because the Phoenix allows it. The Phoenix is responsible for the creation of life itself across the multiverse. It says so on, you could go to Marvel Wikipedia or whatever, Marvelpedia or whatever right now, and you could literally read, there's a thing that literally says, it literally says something like, having the power to cut and regrow any part of the universe as well as destroy it entirely, which is part of the Phoenix's purpose. The judgment of the Phoenix is to burn away the absolute. The Phoenix Force is described as the embodiment of all passion and creation. It is the spark that gave life to the universe. That's right there. I didn't have to look very hard. I literally just typed in Phoenix Force right now and clicked on the first link, and that's it. That's the little thing that it reads. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that it blows my mind just how misunderstood the Phoenix Force really is, even by the people handling the material, because I don't care what her powers are. The Phoenix Force is not afraid of the Scarlet Witch. The only reason that the Scarlet Witch is even allowed to live is because the Phoenix Force allowed it. If the Phoenix Force wants to, if it is unquestionably the Phoenix Force, it would simply annihilate her from existence instantly, and we'd just be done with it. Doesn't matter. Now, it's true that when the Phoenix Force is in a host, that host has to adapt to the power, and it grows significantly over time. And if you were able to destroy the host, you would then disperse the Phoenix Force, and it would no longer be there. And that's very important, because that's how you beat the Phoenix Force. You have to actually beat the thing that the Phoenix Force is attached to, and then even still, you did not defeat the Phoenix at large. You really didn't. Anyways, guys, I have rambled long enough. We are going on 27 minutes, so you are now all caught up with Jean Grey. See you later.